So I'm going to stop sharing here and I'm going to dive in here to this really fun panel that we have. But I will introduce them in just a second too. But I do want to note that we will have the question box. So we have the question and chat box available. So definitely throw your questions in there that you have for the panelists. And hopefully we have time for questions at the end. But we will definitely put those in there. So that way, if we do, they'll be ready to go and we can ask our panelists those as well. Now, I want to announce our awesome speakers here. Okay, so first up that we have here is Angela Hughes, who is president of Trips and Ships Luxury Travel. Welcome.
Welcome.
Yes, welcome to the webinar. This is going to be a good time. We also have Kimberly Radelli, who is a president and founder of Luxury Italian Tours. So welcome as well.
Hi, everyone.
And then finally, we also have Ragan Stone, who is a luxury travel advisor at Ragan Stone Travel. So this is awesome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, this is good. We have a cool, fun group today, and we're gonna touch on so many different topics. So we'll do, anything from marketing, how to get clients, what are the logistics for luxury travel, suppliers, all that kind of stuff. We're gonna touch on tons of things here today. So just a reminder for my panelists as well. Feel free to jump in and interject on any question too, or if you think of something, feel free to ask those or to mention your thoughts or comments in there as well. And then again, for the audience, feel free to put your questions in that Q&A or chat too. And hopefully we're able to answer those at the end. But okay, so are you ready, panel? We are
ready.
We're diving in. Here we go. Okay, so the first question, because I always feel like we just are like, oh, luxury travel, but really, how do you define luxury travel and really what makes it unique? So Angela, I'm going to start with you on this.
Okay, sure. I think that there is a huge spectrum. We use the spectrum all the time now in the world, but there's a spectrum of luxury travelers because we've got like the uber high wealthy people who have sold tech companies. I've got a couple of clients that have, sold and for $180 million, and they're really just dropping what they want when they want, no questions asked. Then we've got kind of a mid-range tier of people who've made money, who have money, who are looking for value, who are looking for experiences. And then we've got just normal people who qualify for luxury, who maybe are buying in that range, but it's a reach for them. And they're looking for the same things, the value, the authenticity. And that could even be your school teacher who's looking for that. And so I don't like to do it just based on a dollar volume, because could be a whole range of people. I really think it comes down to like the authentic experiences. It comes down to the dining, the boutique type properties, the high-end properties. There is such a range on that. I think it's a feeling. I don't think it's a dollar amount. I don't think it's a location. I think it's a feeling that someone feels at the end of the day when they come home for that trip. Was that luxury for me? Because that could be on anybody could experience that.
I like that. A feeling. That's a good way to put it. So,
and that out there.
Yeah, that's it. See, and that's why I asked it, because it's like there's so much more to it. And Ragan, do you think there's a one size fits all luxury client, or are they all different? Because I mean, kind of like what Angela was saying, but what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I think, talking about what Angela is saying is that she's right. There are so many different clients out there. But no, I don't think any of them is a one size fit all. Oh my gosh, my job would probably be a lot easier if it was. I think all of us would be a lot easier if it was. But it really comes down, at least for me, and the way I run my business is getting to know people and getting to know them very, very well. Everything from, their kind of nuanced preferences, and maybe they're a little like quirky things that they like and dislike, and then also understanding what really makes them excited. So if we can incorporate that outside of where the unexpected, so if we can do it with a certain type of driver or a certain type of guide, or within a certain dining experience, or even if they're staying in a property that has some type of provenance and history that ties into something that the client is passionate about, then I do think that hits on a level of luxury that that we're always trying to reach, and it does come with more of a personal connection. So I definitely, I know and understand the quick and the get it done and the things like that, but these days everything is so quick and so fast, and we're using Siri on our phones and Alexa in our houses, and so I think because of our automated world, and personal connection is definitely where we find the value of luxury in our relationships with clients.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Kimberly, how about for you and your team? Like, how would you define like what you do is the luxury?
Yeah, so luxury Italian tours, that is our market. And I agree with my fellow panelists that it isn't necessarily a dollar amount. It's not only always going after that 5-star property, but I think luxury is really individual. And I think each client needs to kind of feel as though they're treated like an individual. Things are maybe exclusive to them, or maybe just not something that they can find on the internet where other buses are going, tour buses are going to be at. They like those unique experiences. They like that little extra attention, even from the property owner. If it's a smaller property and there's some special needs that they like, it's all about their preferences and making them feel special. So that's how we define luxury, and each client just generally is not a cookie cutter, where yes, it would be a lot easier if we can have the same itinerary for everyone, but that wouldn't be luxury in my opinion. It needs to be individualized and personalized.
Yeah. See, and that's why I want to start off with that question. Just what makes it different than, other types of travel? So really, really great answers. I love all that. And one thing too, so something that can make luxury travel stand out is obviously branding also. So we'll dig into that big time, is like, how you get that clientele, the branding. But I want to talk about marketing, that in branding and marketing for a little bit. So how have you branded yourself to attract luxury clients? And Kimberly, I'm actually going to start with you on this one.
That's interesting because everyone's trying to go after the luxury client, and how do you do that? And for us, that's our market, and for us it's really word of mouth. I don't think that luxury consumer is looking on social media or TikTok for that experience, but they are maybe at the country club and their friends just came back and said we had a wonderful trip, and that kind of endorsement from a friend is really how to penetrate, in my opinion, the luxury segment, because no one wants to be surprised. No one wants to, have a generic experience. So if they have someone that can be your ambassador, I think it goes a long way. And the majority of our business is referral, and it just mushrooms a lot more successfully than any marketing plan that we have done in the past. So
yeah. Word of mouth is huge. Yeah, especially it makes total sense for luxury too. And one thing that's really interesting though is, Ragan, I want to go to you on this, is when it comes to like you're creating your brand to attract, like, so if someone goes to Ragan Stone Travel, you mentioned before this that you had outsourced designers just to make sure that your branding was on par with what you wanted to convey. So can you share a little bit more about like how did that process go, and how did you make sure that it was the look and feel that you wanted?
Yeah. I'm a little picky about the way some certain things look, and admittedly, I'm not very good at designing things myself. I might be really good at saying, "Hey, I like the way that looks," but not making it myself. So I used a local designer, and I had him create a brand for me, and I had him work on a website and some things like that. But what I really wanted to model it after, because I was worried about it kind of just falling into this world of travel advisors. I live in an area where the market is pretty heavily saturated. So I went out and I looked at actually some other industry, I would say like industries that are a little bit adjacent, where people are charging for their services. And so I went and I looked at a lot of my interior designer friends and things like that, and looked at the way that they were branding their services in order to kind of qualify their clients. So what we created, I think, kind of before people reach out, we don't have a bunch of price lists or anything on there like that, but I'm hopeful that it sends a message to the types of clients that we're trying to attract, and that they feel that the brand resonates with their style, and that they feel that like they can go ahead and they can trust us because they see it and they think, okay, well, this is me. I see myself here. I feel like I can call her and talk to her. So it is a little bit different direction, but it worked in the end. And I also came from a background and worked with a lot of design world, so it tended to work in my favor as well. So
Yeah, that's so interesting. That's why I want to make sure to ask that, because it's really cool, approaching it from that angle of like, okay, I need to, what am I looking like, in front of the branding and everything. And Angela, how about for you? Because your company has been around for quite a while, right? So did you have to change your branding at all?
Oh,
Like how did that work?
30 times. I mean, over 30 years,
okay.
because, and we talked about this before, but back in the 90s, we did travel different than we did in the 2000s. And in 2010, it looked different than how we're doing it now. Even 5-6 years ago, people weren't talking like a luxury market. Honestly, I always joke about this, but if you sold like a suite on a cruise, people considered that luxury 5-6 years ago, 7 years ago. And so I think many times, like just as a business strategist, I've had to ask myself these questions, like, what is the why of my branding? Is it long-term? Is it macro? Does it build loyalty? Does it create value? Is there a trajectory with it? And then, story tell that whole thing. And then you pick out marketing and you decide, the how, what you're going to do in the short term, the micro pieces of it, and generating responses, those types of things, and then are you extra, are you bringing out that value? You in branding, you create the value, but when you're marketing it, are you creating, are you extracting that value out there? And so, I think there's a big difference in like the whole branding and marketing piece. You can rebrand a million times. We saw so many people rebrand during COVID, and that was great. But really, the long-term vision of that needs to be like, does it meet what the value and your authority is when you go out to market it? And are you showing that? Because I see people all the time come to me through, my private consulting business at the Luxury Travel University, and they're like, okay, I'm in the luxury travel market now. And I'm like, well, what does that look like to you? And who do you surround yourself with? And what does your clientele look like? And a lot of times they're not even really in that market, but everybody wants to be there because that seems like where the money is. And really, that they're just in the premium market, and that's a great place to be. You sell a celebrity, you sell an Azamara, you're premium space, and that's a beautiful place to be because most people are right there. And I always say, if you want to give yourself a raise, just upsell whoever your client is today. You don't need to go out and find all brand new people to make this a part of your game plan, because it's far and wide between, it's few between that you're going to get a client that has $200 million. A lot of people are normal people.
Yeah, I do have to agree with Angela that one of the biggest ways to have your brand produce for you and see the ROI on it is to live it through. And that took me a little bit to understand that. I knew what I wanted it to look like, and we made it look that way, but it came to living it out, and that meant telling some people no. And that meant saying, kind of putting some boundaries around some things, but it has paid off in the end because it does establish you in the market that you want to be in. And so I do agree with that wholeheartedly. And I do think that's essential to making sure that your brand is effective.
So we've taken a little different approach. We haven't rebranded over the 10 plus years that we've been in business. And my philosophy was to look for a logo and a brand that is timeless, similar to a luxury goods brand. So the Gucci logo, we'll use that as an example because we specialize in Italy, has been the same since inception. So our logo for Luxury Italian Tours is, we chose orange to match the terracotta tiles that are found throughout Italy's rooftops. Our Luxury Italian Honeymoons brand is kind of a broken heart taken from Elsa Peretti from Tiffany's. And it's blue because most of our honeymoon clients love kind of coastal destinations. Our luxury Italian villas brand is green, and it's kind of like gates opening like to an estate. So there is meaning behind each of our brands. Luxury Italian Wine Tours is a swirling red wine glass. So, it's not only descriptive of what we do, there is a little meaning to it. And I love the logos, and it's resonated so well with clients, and hopefully we won't have to rebrand and change, because like a luxury brand and logo, it is timeless. And that's kind of what we were going for when it was designed. And like you, we had focus groups. I hired so many different designers, fired them. They were just not getting the right look, and found someone in Europe who actually designed the logo, and a lot of trials and tribulations to get it. But once we selected it, it's been our staple for over a decade.
Yeah, well, I
That's
laugh
cool.
now because we didn't even have, back when I was younger, we didn't even have the internet back then. We were a walk-in store, and you didn't have the designers, and you didn't have the,
Yeah.
everything was hand drawn back then, so, and that dates me a lot. And I mean, that's the interesting thing, that over, I look at the history of things in luxury travel, and I'm like, wow, it's really, like you said, maybe like the last decade that we've really just picked up this whole theme. It's such an interesting, I think we should write a book on that.
That is true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I never asked. A future webinar will have that question, because that is so true. It really has changed it. And so cool too. Like all of the thought that goes behind the branding and the logo. It's so cool. So it's so much. I mean, we were talking about that in a session earlier today. Just how much, but something else that I want to talk about that really has to do with your branding and your logo, but it's also yourself. And so I also want to talk about, what have you found that works best? So Ragan, I want to start with you, because before when we had chatted, one of the things is also just how you look, which is really interesting. So I love this idea of just like, get the right clothes. I love that idea. I'm going shopping after this so I can get the right. It's amazing. No, but I mean, that's just one thing, but yeah, I'll let you touch more on it, but I thought that was so cool. I was like,
well, no, I do. So I appreciate that. But the way that basically is that I found over time, and to give a little background, I did not grow up in a luxury circle. My parents were not members of country clubs. My parents actually, they didn't go to college. So I really had to really intentionally go out and look for this clientele. I started very, very young, straight after college in the industry, and I learned from advisors who had really remarkable books of business and were great mentors. And I learned doing the work that no one wanted to do, sitting in a cubicle, things like that. But when it came to go out and grow my own book of business, you have to earn people's trust. And in this world, a lot of times you'll see some of the top producers, and they'll say, those good referrals can come from family and friends and things like that. And it could be intimidating, because I'm looking around, I'm thinking, well, a lot of my family members, some of them don't have passports, so I don't know if these referrals are going to come from my family and friends. So I've got to kind of get a little creative here. So part of that was thinking, okay, maybe part of that is inserting myself in this. So I got out in the community, I got involved in a few different things. And then, I'm like an old soul. So I made friends with some women in some garden clubs and things like that. And, we hit it off. And then part of that was, I realized that the more time I invested in, kind of in myself, instead of just on, my work, I guess, which I know that sounds weird, but the more time I invest in myself. So, I remember getting, one of my first bigger commission months, I went out and I got myself a handbag or something. I probably didn't tell my husband about it or anything like that. And, this woman commented on it, and she was like, "Oh, you look so great. I love that." And I thought, "Oh, thanks." And then, she ends up being my client, and then she tells her girlfriend and her other girlfriend and things like that. And so then I tell my husband, "Well, I need to go buy another bag or jacket or this or that." And so I realized that kind of investing in not saying to go out and max your credit cards out, but kind of investing in myself and being more confident and just, interacting with some more confidence and feeling like I am looking like what I'm offering, helped me build my brand, and it helped me kind of establish a reputation around it. So, I'm trying to, I don't want to sound like a total snob here, and maybe I do, to be quite honest with you, but it part of that is kind of earning the trust of some people who have unlimited resources, and the internet being one of them, credit card companies, things like that. So to get them to look at you and say, yeah, let me work with you, and let me invest my time and my money and things like that, you do have to earn their trust. And so I think part of that is feeling like you're on, you have some common ground on some things. So that has turned out well, for me particularly. But in other communities, it could be totally different. It could be a gym membership at like a boutique fitness place, because that tends to be a great area. It could be like a wine club, because that tends to like attract a certain type of clientele. It really looks different for everyone. And it just so happens that where I live and in this market, working with some people, that's how it worked out. So yes,
just how you get. No, I was like, I love that approach. Being even someone said that, Lauren said, I've done that, wine tastings, going certain places, the network, and doing all that.
Yeah.
And it makes so much sense. And Kimberly, I know when we were talking before too, that you mentioned something about how, it only takes like one person to just, start working with, and then they tell their person, and then they tell their person. It's just really easy to get it going.
Completely. And getting to investing in yourself. And, if you want to deal with the luxury market, you yourself need to be somewhat luxurious yourself, because that's how you build trust. And it's not only, from our logo, from our staff, from our marketing materials, but even over in Europe, our drivers, I personally interview all of our guides, drivers, everyone that we work with, because they're your brand too. So it's not only about you. So we want our cars to be clean, shiny, our drivers, to be in nice suits, crisp white shirts, not crumpled, because that is not an extension of our brand and who we want to be. So it's really investing in if you want to call it the human supply chain, really, from you, your office, your communications, your marketing materials, all the way to who you work with over in your destinations. So it's the broad spectrum, in my opinion.
Yeah. And another one too is, Angela, I want to make sure that we talked on this, like just talking also on marketing and finding clientele is, we've had conversations before, just on past webinars, that's really cool is you utilize LinkedIn too, to finding your clients and networking. And can you just tell us more about that?
Yeah, actually, I think the two platforms that are the best for attracting more of a premium plus market would be Facebook and LinkedIn. And you need to be on both of those. But I feel like you got to be telling your story. Okay. I constantly am just beating this dead horse when I'm on stage, telling people like, hey, just don't go out and post every day beautiful photos. And that's great inspo. But you know what? People are buying you. They're buying you as an advisor. They're buying your company. And the storytelling piece is really important. And you gain a lot of authority. And when people can see your integrity, they can see your value, they can see your moral standards, and they follow you, and they know you, they know your storyline. I mean, a lot of people trust me because for decades, we've done a lot of humanitarian work and actually ran a ton of humanitarian trips during the summer where we made zero money. And that was a really interesting thing, giving back, people, because when you're giving back, you're actually networking with a lot of people who are also giving back. And that was never the intention, was, to turn those people into clients, but it's amazing the types of people you'll meet in the garbage dumps. And so I've had two spectrums of being in the garbage dumps of the entire world and in the luxury market. And that, so I'm always stressing to people, like, be giving back, be out there giving a piece of your business back. You'll be amazed at the types of people you meet. But, going back to the original question, LinkedIn and social media, you need to be on the platforms where those people are that are a particular dollar value. And I agree with all of the panelists here. You need to be investing in your own travel. I was telling the group that I was traveling with last week in a consulting session that I did, it was like, hey, you want to be traveling, you want to be there. I meet a ton of people all over the world at a lodge in Tanzania or at a hotel that end up becoming my clients. You've got to be socializing in that circle yourself. And if you're wondering, well, that's not my circle, turn that commission that you're making into an investment back into your own travel, because you need to be in this market. You need to have been to those destinations and really proficient in it. People are not going to drop $50,000 to $75,000 if you're not pretty well versed in that arena.
Yeah. I totally agree.
I think that's a really important point, because I tend to travel a lot, and even going to the latest restaurant, seeing hotels that haven't yet been opened. I visited, hotels under construction, and to come back and mention those restaurants or have those restaurants that my clients have gone to maybe a year before Travel and Leisure picks it up. There's so much credibility that builds, because that's where the luxury market wants to be. They want to be there first. They don't want to be there after everyone else has been there already. So to have a property that has just opened and they're one of the first guests and could speak to it, and when they're, when they talk to their friends, they can say, yes, I've already been there. They love that. And it does build such a credibility for you as an agent to say, I'm on the pulse. I know exactly what's going on in travel. I've got the best recommendations first. And that trust building and that knowledge that you're communicating goes so far, and the referrals will come and you will break into that market.
Yeah.
I love that. And actually that actually segues me into my next one really well, because I wanted to talk about suppliers, because when it comes to, luxury and actually there's a question that just came in now, even about how do you get on FAMs, and how do you start exploring where luxury travel is, and but Kimberly, I'll actually start with you, because it's really interesting, because you did start your business focused on Italy. So how did you start exploring those places and finding who you wanted to work with?
Sure. So just to answer that question that came in, fam trips, I don't go on any fam trips. Why? Because every other travel agent is going on a fam trip. So for that luxury client, that's not where they're looking for. You need to kind of find other outlets, other publications that your luxury market is reading, and experiences that you can offer that every agent on the fam trip is not going on and not promoting as well. So that's my personal kind of travel. So when I do create my own fam trip, and I'm driving, pounding the pavement, your contacts are going to be your best resources over in Europe. We don't work a lot with DMCs because everything is really highly curated by me and my team. But when you have a villa owner and you say, what are other experiences, they open up a whole new network of private experiences. I work with a winemaker in Italy. She only works with 3 agents around the world. I'm one of them. Another travel agent is a local agent. So when our clients are going there, no one else is going there. And our clients feel that is really unique and special. And I think that, getting back to our first initial question, what is luxury? So I think, that is just something important, where if anyone does go on a fam trip, spend an extra few days to actually kind of explore on your own, find those things, meet locals and say, where else should I go? Do you have any recommendations? Because that's going to open up a whole nother network for you, and potentially some unique experiences that you can bring back for your clients.
Like that. Yeah. Just start asking, how to get to those other contacts. And Angela, how about, for you, how have you found what suppliers you want to work with?
Oh, I think it's the same thing. I mean, I'm super well traveled. I'm going to be hitting 100 countries, but I've done a lot of countries over and over and over. And I'm a little bit different, because I do run a whole series of fam trips for the Luxury Travel University. And I think they bring great value. So I'm on the other side of that fence. And I agree with her, but I'm on the other side. We just came from Italy and from Sardinia. And that was just you know, the supplier we chose to work with, the experiences. I mean, I was beekeeping last week in a whole beekeeping outfit and, you know, eating in an olive farm and, you know, all of these different things. And so I think that, I think people, what happens is people come into the industry and they're told so many times, like, you need to niche down and you need to find what you love and everything. And I was telling my people last week that were traveling with me, these advisors, I was like, look, your niche is not a destination. It's not a dollar value. It's a person. So you need to define what that ideal client avatar is for you. And then you narrow in, because the interesting thing is in the luxury space, if you have somebody that's doing high-end Italy, that person's going to transition over and do maybe a safari next, then maybe Antarctica next. So that they're moving. They're not always going to repeat, and they may repeat. They may find a place and love it and repeat. I don't want to act like that doesn't happen. But the thing is, like, that's why you need to know what your ideal client avatar is that you're going to target when you set that plan together. Okay. In that marketing piece, not the branding now, but the marketing piece, because that client now is going to rotate through a series of destinations. Almost always. And that's what the trends show. And so you don't want to be so narrowed down that, and maybe you do, maybe you just want to sell Italy. I mean, obviously we have a pro on here that just sells Italy. That's fantastic. But you're going to narrow down on a niche, a type of person. So you can be diverse enough to carry that client on, and you don't need to refer that to another person unless I was with an agent last week and she said, I don't want to get out of the Italy market. And I'm like, great. What do you do with a person when they want to go somewhere else? And she says, I refer them over. And that's terrific. That's her jive. You know, for me, I want to be able to transition that person to the next big trip. And that's where you've got to stay well-versed. You've got to know the niche. And so the niche is going to be that ideal client avatar, that person. What does it look like? Where do they spend? Where do they socialize? Where are you going to meet them? How are you going to attract them? There's so many things with that. And then pull together the geography, the experiences, all of it, you know.
Lots of ways. And Ragan, same question for you. How have you found your suppliers and continue to find them too?
You know, I work with a big mix of suppliers, and it's not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily hinge on whether it's like they're part of some preferred agency program or something like that. It really, like Angela's saying, has a lot to do with the client and what they're looking for. I mean, fostering a relationship with the suppliers, of course, is so important. And I think that that's actually really important with on-sites and with DMCs. And a lot of people tend to I feel that a lot of people kind of overlook that. You know, they're always searching for the best DMC or the best on-site. And, you know, most countries, I have one that I use. And I find that using that loyalty over time, and them, you know, because you got to think about how small the travel industry is, how many advisors know each other. These DMCs, they all know each other. Of course they do, you know? And so if you're shopping the trip over and over and over again, they're not feeling that loyalty towards you. So I feel that, you know, if I'm using these guys over and over again and we have a great relationship, you know, they're really able to craft what my client is looking for, especially if they've done the other trips. Yeah. And they've gone off very, very well. But in terms of when it comes to hotels and things like that, it's totally what Angela's saying, is it really comes to the client. And a lot of that is the clients that come to you. Most of my clients are not, they don't define luxury as, you know, a fizzy cocktail with like sparklers coming out of it, you know, in a super modern all white bar. A lot of my clients, I mean, I'm here in the South, so a lot of my clients define luxury as something that is like a little bit more intimate. Maybe the service a little more personalized. Maybe you're greeted by name on arrival. It's not always an infinity edge pool that really like brings people in. So I look for properties that are a little off the beaten path, that are a little different, things like that. And then I make those salespeople my very best friend. They have no choice. So, and that will serve you very well. So it's basically kind of sums it up.
Yeah, I feel like that is so important, just with making everybody, your best friend, and knowing, because you can give them that experience that is luxury, one-on-one, personalized. Really awesome there.
Yeah. Well, and I make sure when I talk to my clients, I always say, well, my friend's at X hotel. So they never feel like I'm just talking to, whoever is at the desk. I always say, oh, my friend, I'm thinking of a girl, my friend Kelly at blank hotel, or, and just so that they feel like they're a little bit more in the family instead of feeling like it's so transactional, because it's really not for a lot of people. It's a bucket list. It's a long sales cycle. Sometimes it's a long planning cycle. And so I want them to feel like it's a little more intimate than it just being like this card, money exchange.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. That's huge. And I know there's a ton of questions coming in too. So I have one last thing, and then we'll get to audience questions is, okay, so what advice would you give someone new to the industry or just trying to break into the luxury travel market? I mean, we've had a lot of nuggets of advice already, but what is something that maybe we haven't touched on? And I'll just kind of let any of you go. I won't. Sorry, I probably shouldn't do that. Angela, I'll go with you first.
Yeah, I'm going to say this. Any new advisor can sell any place. Okay, like I'm an ex-college geography professor in travel and tourism, business strategy. You can sell anything that you haven't traveled to if you know your geography, if you know your brands, and if you built relationships. Those are like the key strategies that I always tell people. Super important, because you can't go everywhere. You're not going to have the money to go everywhere. And maybe you want to break into this market. Do not walk off of this panel today, this call today, and geez, I've got to now go on a $75,000 trip and go buy a Gucci bag and, all of these different things. You don't need to do that. What you do need to do is invest in your education, get to know your suppliers, get to know your hotel portfolios, and whether you're with Virtuoso, Intranova, Travel Leaders, a whole 9 yards, get to know your high-end hotel portfolio. And then you decide like, where do I want to invest next year in 23? I'm going to take my commissions that I've made, even if I'm only selling Mexico and the Caribbean, Sunsea and Sand type things, and I'm going to reinvest that in one destination, like set a goal, like I'm going to invest in Italy next year. I'm going to invest in Africa, and make an investment, because you're going to have to invest in your business. People who invest do better. And then, for years, I didn't go on a river cruise. I was invited like the first year, like back in the early 2000s, honestly. I mean, gosh, that was probably 18 or 19 years ago when we first started river cruising over there, and it got canceled at the last minute. And I remember I was like, well, I'll just do Budapest, Poland, Prague, Vienna, and did it all by land and everything. I didn't go on a river cruise for years, but we were able to sell it because I understood how the Danube operated. I understood who the brands were that I was working with. So you could have an intelligent conversation with people. And so you don't have to feel intimidated today, feeling like, oh, great. I'm a newbie. How do I get started in that? Concentrate on your geography, because if you don't know your geography, you're going to stumble. Build a relationship, find your relationship team, find your team of people, your people, and then be authoritative and tell your stories and sell yourself. So that was a lot of advice.
I like it. I love it. Just going back to the geography basics, just going back to that.
That's a geography professor.
Gonna have to get this globe out. No, it makes sense though. And Ragan, it looked like you were about to speak next there.
I guess I'll, I've learned a lot of advice throughout the years from a lot of good people. Most of my best advice came from other people. So I was reading a book one time, and it said, you can be really, really successful, or you can look at your phone, choose one. And so that has always stuck with me when I find myself like doom scrolling or about to play Candy Crush or something. And so I think that that's something to always think about, is that there's always more to learn in this industry, and you cannot wait for it to come to you. So the things that you think are needless or that you don't need to learn are probably exactly what you need to hear. And I learn something new every single day. There's plenty of hotels I don't know anything about. There's plenty of destinations I don't know anything about. And it always helps to ask questions and to learn, and most of all, to read, whether that's a magazine article about a cool hotel or destination, or a boutique in that city, or a new chef, or whether it's a podcast. Just gaining that knowledge will help you so much. And then I think that there's a lot to be said for being in like the luxury market. But but I do believe that if you really want to position yourself for luxury clients, you do have to stick to your guns, and that, I hate to put it bluntly, but cheap clients are going to refer you cheap clients. So do set some boundaries around what you sell and around who you work with, and do try to elevate your brand and stick with it. And then last of all is that another advisor who's really like a mentor to me, and she's been very, very successful. She said there's so much pressure to go out and get this business and sell and do this and that and travel and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, she said, if I just do a really, really good job, I know that my business will do well. And so I think all of us know that word of mouth referrals are the most effective. And there's no way you get those unless you just do a really, really good job focusing on you and yourself and making your clients as happy as can be. So there's a lot that goes into that, but at the end of the day, if you can hit the mark there, then your business will take off in the direction you want it to.
Love that. Yes, that is always learning. That's so smart. And Kimberly, how about for you? And you have like new agents joining your team, or agent, just what do you tell them? Like, what are things that you're like, this is going to be a good tip that I am going to give you? What do you say?
I think knowledge is the best, and really that gives you an edge. If there is getting back to knowing your geography, sorry for the barking dog. If you know a geography and you can suggest maybe a little side trip from that is unique and different and adds a different experience. I just tell, my staff, we need to be on top of everything. So read all the magazines, read all the tips, read about the new hotels, read everything, just so you can be on top of everything and offer your clients something new and unique.
Awesome. I love that. Oh, it's so motivating. I love all of this. But I also know there's so many questions coming in, but so I'm going to start going at them. Now this one, okay, I promise we will keep this one short, because I know this is a very powerful question that a lot of people like to ask is, Michelle had asked, do each of the panelists charge planning fees, or do you do fees? So I'll let any of you take, looks like head nods.
Yeah, I'll just address that first, because this is my theory. You cannot have just a set fee, because I think that when I have so first of all, I have assistants that work on my trips. They set a timer when they start working on it. It's actually in my CRM. It's a timer, but you could set it on your phone, on your Apple Watch, whatever. You need to know at the end of the day how long a trip cost you. So maybe that took you 20 hours to do. And if you only charged $300 in fees, or $75, and your commission was only $400, now you're dividing that by the hours that it took. And so you've got to know at the end of the day what a trip costs, and that's going to take some time. And so the biggest mistake I see my early agents come in and say, because I have 60 people in my host agency, okay, we're a host, they'll come in and they are like, well, I'm brand new and I can't charge a fee, and because I don't have experience. And I'm like, you need to be charging a fee to prove that you have value, because the minute you don't charge a fee, you're going to garner all types of clients, and you need to make sure that you have the mental space to open up a room in your brain for marketing, sharpening the saw, all of those things. And if you're taking everything that walks in the door because you feel desperate, and then you're not charging a fee to do that, you're going to be run ragged, after 1 year. And we see a lot of people run out of steam after a year or two. And I know exactly how many transactions all my agents have done. I have some agents that are doing 400 transactions a year. I want to see them doing 100 transactions a year, because you're going to make more selling a $25,000, $30,000 trip than selling, 10 trips for $3,000, to Puerto Vallarta. Okay. So you want to be able to say, I can be $1 million agent, and this is how I'm going to do it. Fees are going to be one stream of revenue. Now, the other thing I want to say about that is take your fee and hire an assistant to help you with it. That means you can attract and bring in more people when you're marketing, and they're doing the background work. So you're the doctor, they're the nurse, and they're doing all of the background work for you. You're using that fee to pay them, and you can bring in a lot more people that way. So.
We've always charged fees. I'm a big, advocate of fees because you don't want to shortchange your value. And by not accepting and charging a fee, I do feel as though it does show our value. People take us more seriously. We avoid any shoppers who are just looking for information, who are looking to turn around our itinerary and do it themselves. And if people don't want to pay the fee, we just say thank you very much, and you don't understand our process. And we do actually, in order to kind of avoid any miscommunication, we do have kind of information that we give prior to any introductory calls that reviews our whole process, and people know exactly when they have to pay fees, where and what they'll get after they pay the fee. So we're transparent about it, and they know how we do business. And if they want to walk away, then it's not our client, and we can't open the doors to everyone and act desperate, because that undermines our value, our knowledge, and our service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I charge fees as well. And I also have a minimum spend that I send to every single inquiry that comes through. And I just say that I best serve clients that spend X, are comfortable spending X amount or more on their travel plans. And so I stick with that pretty hard. Of course, my repeat clients who are doing little, one night stays somewhere for business or something like that, of course I'll book that for them. But for any new client, there's a minimum spend that I enforce, and then there's fees with trips. If the client spend is of a certain level, I don't charge a fee, but it's pretty significant. So there's very few people in that list.
What's the beauty of a feed too? You can waive it, and we talk about that tomorrow in our webinar. So I know all about these things. So it's like I love it. It is a hot topic. It is so awesome. So another question I want to get on, because there's a few people who asked this kind of in different ways, is identifying your client avatar, because that's really important when you're trying to go after a certain type of client here. But how do you get the answer to those questions? Like Michelle was asking, like, how do you know where they eat? How do they socialize? Like, how do you start doing that? Like, that's a good question. Like, where do you go? How do you start building that persona or avatar?
I think you need to.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think you need. Oh, you go ahead, Ragan.
I was going to say joining. Like if you don't know and you don't want to invest a whole lot in the beginning at the wrong places, because I understand that. I would join a nonprofit, maybe volunteer, get to know their board of directors, things like that, get involved. A lot of people who have heavy financial resources to travel are also very philanthropic. So volunteering is free, obviously. That's a good way to get involved with a great group of people. So that's a good option for you. And then besides that, like there's a ton of little regional magazines like a Style Blueprint or a Scout Guide or something like that. And Instagram, I mean, I know y'all are probably like, oh, the millennial, of course, but Instagram is a good resource too. And I find I get a ton of business from Instagram. So that works out really well.
It's interesting she says Instagram, because the millennial market is actually huge for luxury travel now. I mean, there is a huge segment for that. So we can't discount like our younger friends because they're actually
I get
point in that. So she's spot on. They're on Instagram,
Yeah, I get a ton of Instagram inquiries. People, I don't know them at all. So it's helpful. Mm-hmm.
And another thing here too is so the persona and everything, but also Janine asked how do you do those deep dives to find the right luxury or boutique properties? What's the best way to research them? So kind of another question, but instead of researching to find your client, how do you research to find the spots that you want to sell?
I think it's knowing the market, and reading to see what's out there. Maybe there is a particular chain a boutique chain that you like. Maybe look to see if they have any other properties, what's in their portfolio. And it's just, this is a time consuming job. I tell my staff, we need to study when the day's over, and it's, look on Instagram. There's tons of properties, new hotels that are advertising all over the internet. So I think just knowing your market and knowing what is out there is important, and it takes studying all the time, because there's always new openings, particularly after COVID. There's been so many smaller boutique mom and pop hotels, particularly in Italy, that never survived, and now they're reopening into new properties, and to know what's going on in the market, I think is really like, that's how we do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Kimberly's right, looking into knowing your market and looking at the destination, but also get to know your sales reps and get to know the GMs and get to know the people that work at the hotels. Ask them questions. They like to have, most of the ones I know love to have conversations that are not related to like revenue and guest room count and things like that. So if you can ask them questions and get to know them, there's plenty of information. And then also beyond the hotel brands, I would also strongly recommend going out and finding rep companies that you can build relationships with. So maybe it's a sales rep that has a portfolio, because even if they don't rep a certain property or a villa or something like that, they probably know of one, and they can really give you some little hidden gems.
That's cool. Yeah, lots of research. Yeah, and someone said subscribe to everyone and then spend hours it takes to know the market. But even I was just thinking, like, even like Travel Market Report and like them and Travel Age West, all of those, and sometimes they'll have luxury sections, so you can see the articles that are just pertaining to luxury and see what new hotels are opening up, or all that. There's a lot of really cool ways in there.
Well, and I think your consortia is another great way, because
yeah,
consortia is always bringing on people and hotel brands and chains from Auberge to whoever, and so there's a lot of things that people don't use in their consortia back office that is just really high quality.
Yeah. No, it's so many things there. And I know there's only 5 minutes, but I'm going to try to squeeze this question in. So there's one last question here from Robin is, how do you tell a potential client that their trip doesn't fit in your business model? So it's a good question. She said, for instance, I specialize in high-end Europe, but they want a budget all-inclusive Mexico trip. Yeah, what do you do in that situation? I'll let anyone take it there.
We do that a lot. So and face that challenge a lot. You do want to be polite. There's a market for everyone. So just because you're focused on a particular niche, and we are too, we don't want to make the clients feel as though they're going to get a lesser trip if they don't spend, oodles of money. So you can just, I've had clients that want to do an Airbnb, want to stay at certain hotels that just are not aligned with our brand. So if you just politely say, that's a great option, I'm sure it's going to be great for you, but that's just not how we work. So, there's other travel agents that can better suit what you're looking for. And if, you tell them gently that this maybe is not aligned, this is not a relationship that's not going to work for you, they can move on to, someone else and not feel slighted and have a wonderful time on their trip.
I love that. Is there anything else to add?
I agree. A lot of times that it can be awkward, but it's easy just to kind of say, and I find it's easy to put it on me, like the whole it's me, it's not you, it's me. Right. And I say, that I say that I don't know that market very well, I don't know that property very well, or things like that. I probably wouldn't be a good fit, or I say something like I can't provide a lot of value there, and encourage them to either do it on their own, or I refer them to another advisor that I know may be a good fit. And then I say, like, I'm happy to continue to give you recommendations in that area if you're interested. Most of them aren't, or if it is someone that I really am trying to like move away, or if it's a client that's like, I'm actually dealing with this right now. I have a client that's a good client, but it's just not working out for her dates, and I'll just be honest with her, and I'll just be like, I don't feel comfortable. I couldn't vouch for this. I couldn't give you couldn't put my stamp on this where you guys are wanting to go. So if you want to go, like, have at it. I think you'll have a nice time. I don't want to be the one that sends you there. If you know what I mean. Most people respect that, I found, and they're fine with it. They don't take offense to it.
Yeah. It's just valuing your time.
And Stephanie, I think you have to be a little bit careful. I had something backfire last week with some, or a couple weeks ago with some African clients. I mean, they had spent 40,000, but we tout big numbers on big trips. And I'd thrown that out there a couple times in the sales cycle. And they actually on their feedback in the end said, you made us feel like our trip didn't have as enough, you know, like wasn't as valuable. And I thought, geez, they spent 40,000. And that was a good lesson for me because I'm like, yeah, you want to have a gentle balance and you need to be able to read your audience. I mean, I'm always still learning too, because when you start working in big dollars, people are like sensitive no matter what scale they're on. Here they'd spent 20,000 a couple, two couples, 40,000. But, you know, I had, you know, just the way I had presented myself. So I'm always learning, you know, and not afraid to say make mistakes. And I got off the phone call on that. And I was like, yeah, I didn't read the audience that well on that. They were obviously feeling like they're 40,000 where they thought they were spending $1 million. You know, it's like I had a client, you know, that had been with us that always buys Sunsea and Sand. And she feels like she wrote me and she said, hey, you know, we're spending $3,000 to $5,000. We feel like, you know, when we're spending this much money. And I think at 3,000 to 5,000, they think they're spending a lot. At 20,000 to 40,000, they think they're spending a lot. You know, my other clients are spending 80, you know, and I think we have clients that spend 3,000 to 5,000 on a room night, you know? And so you got to kind of read your audience, you know, and I didn't read my audience well that day, you know, and because the bottom line is you want people to feel comfortable, because when they're comfortable with you and they know you, trust you, then they buy from you. You convert us.
That's such a good important lesson. Yeah. Just how it looks
and
different for
you
everyone.
learn the hard way. I got off the phone. I was like,
yeah, but it goes back actually to our very first question is what is luxury travel and what does that mean? And everybody sees it a little bit differently, you know, and it's so full circle. I like it. It worked really well. And I just want to thank all of you for your time. I know a lot of people are like, this has been so much. This is a ton of stuff. And we could have a webinar upon webinars when it comes to all of this. So this has been really awesome. I just want to thank all of our panelists again, Ragan, Kimberly, Angela. So awesome having you all on here. And thank you so much for spending the time to chat with us. And our audience too, as well. And, you know, and who's been participating in the rest of sales workshops. So exciting. We love having this. And so just want to thank you all again and enjoy the rest of your day. And I hope that I get to see the rest of you on tomorrow. But thanks again, everyone. And thanks again to our panelists.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.